All right, it's 6:30, so we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome all of our guests that are here today. I would also like to make a special welcome and introduction for our new food service director, Miss Kelly Kraus. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We're super excited to have you on board.
I'm excited to.
Do we have anyone for open forum?
I haven't received a call.
All right, can I get a motion for approval of the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Can I get a motion for approval of the regular open session minutes?
I move we approve the regular open session minutes.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, transfer and payment of bills. Did anybody have any questions?
Oh, yeah. What's the United States Treasury thing?
Taxes, IRS.
Okay.
This
And the sod.
sod.
Okay, that's football field?
No, last sod was sod, we put around the long jump pits.
That's what that was.
Yep.
Okay. All right. How's it?
Our payment for fresh ideas, I saw there was one and then there was a check. Is that gonna close us out?
That will close us out, yeah. Our last payment to Fresh Ideas would be for the surplus food items that we had already ordered in anticipation of going into next year, but bringing it in-house. A lot of that we could use. So I had Miss Kraus work with Fresh Ideas staff to figure out what we could use and what we couldn't. And so there's a balance on that.
Gotcha. Good. All right, if there's no other questions, can I get a motion to approve the transfer and payment of bills?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer and payment of bills.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, motion carries. Reports, superintendent report.
All right, I get to kick us off. Culture, climate, and relationships, big one, in trying to really partner well with our community and get information out to parents. Sent a pretty detailed list of information to the UD, the end of last week, which included welcomes from each of our campuses, all of our supply lists, as well as all of our important and relevant dates that are coming up. On the climate and culture side of that, I'm sure you guys saw as well. We sent out a climate and culture survey at the end of last month. We got a lot of that feedback very quickly. Within 2 weeks, we got a couple hundred responses. 22 of those coming from students, 102 coming from parents and guardians, 4 local business responses, 23 faculty, and 24 community responses. As our folks come back on contract here in the coming weeks, we're going to take a look at that data and incorporate it into our campus and district improvement plans. Some standout information. Number one, by the way, I'm sure you guys realize this also, females responded to our survey in far greater numbers than males did, with one exception. Our community responses, females just had a very slight majority there. But in our faculty, students, and local business and parents, it was overwhelmingly female. With that being said, another standout, 89% of our parent and guardian responses were all neutral, agree, and strongly agree, which was overwhelmingly positive. But we do have some areas that we need to take a look at. Our students had stronger negative tendencies in terms of fairness, support, and in particular, other students' poor behaviors in the classroom. They felt like that made it difficult to learn. Our faculty were very split, something I would like to kind of put an asterisk by. When looking at the faculty, I was surprised by a little bit of the information there. So I did just a quick look because we do collect emails. I think just a matter of timing, which was not good. We got the vast majority of our faculty responses were pre-K through 5, because it was during summer school, and that's the vast majority of our participation. But we'll be digging into that and meeting with our campus leadership teams and figuring out where we can do better just in general. In terms of our community responses, they do reflect. They do believe that we reflect their values, but they're split on communication and input. Of particular notice also, I thought was interesting, with our community responses, females overwhelmingly positive, males 41 to 60 years old were overwhelmingly negative, with most disagree and strongly agree. So we're gonna take some time to discuss what that might mean, make some effort in those areas, and then we'll check back on that mid-year. We'll just send out some, almost the same survey, but at least similar. We'll get some more data back on that and figure out if we're doing a little bit better. And then I think we'll get some more feedback also, just as a matter of timing. Tough deal sending out a survey in June. Really proud of everybody that filled out the survey. I appreciate that information, getting it back. As you pointed out, we have our new food service director on board, Ms. Kelly Kraus. We're very happy with that. She'll be presenting some food service hires later on in closed session. We are in a far better position in terms of staffing this year than we were last year, but we have a couple of relatively important hires to make. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we present our hires in closed session. Professional development, beat this drum a million times. We're switching from our professional development being the process for requesting to it being very focused on what our district and campus improvement plans are. So we'll still use the same process, but we will change slightly how those, how professional development requests are focused. That makes sense. Facilities, I'll defer to Mr. Wilson, but of course, everybody's noticed the stadium and bleachers. That's going really well. We're getting some bids on the new fencing. Architects and energy savings contractors will be here tomorrow again for another big meeting. They've been on campus the last couple weeks. Rain brings grass mowing, of course. Guys have been doing a great job doing a lot of painting. And again, we're just going to continue to look at how we can improve aesthetics coming into the new year. Athletics and fine arts, hiring coaches, running our year 2 offense there. We'll hear from Mr. Minix next month with that. A couple of big topics are middle school athletics, specifically the change to fall volleyball, and then, you know, 6th grade basketball. That's something we've moved 6th grade into the middle school. We're talking about the timing there. You know, it's the right thing to do. When is it the right time to do it? And another thing of particular note, I'm really enjoying. We adjusted our budgets for activities, athletics, fine arts this year. It's really fun. We have had a ton of supplies and equipment coming into the board office. It's just because it's the summer. It's really fun watching our coaches and our students pick that stuff up. Budget and finance, we're doing our preliminary ASBR. Our ending fund balance as of right now is a little bit better than what I anticipated at around 35%. We're at about 37% as we finalize our coding and our FER's final expenditure reports. That'll give us a little bit better idea. We have appealed our tax fine from 2019. It takes a while to receive a response from that, but I would like to point out that Chad Carricker from Character Law has been incredibly responsive, and we have had a hard time keeping up with what he needs from us. But I really feel like we chose the right representative there. A lot of information. Sorry to speak through it so fast. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Maintenance report.
Hello, everyone.
Oh,
Just staffing productivity, staffing is still kind of an issue. We still haven't found anybody really for the event custodian position. And we only did end up finding 2 part-time employees for the summer project. So that did set me back a little bit, but we have had some volunteers coming in and helping out, and that helps out a lot too. So productivity is really good. Actually, I can't complain about that at all. All the floors in the ag high school and the junior high are waxed. Ag high school and the junior high are also all ag. So all we're now is working on the elementary. We started on it yesterday, and it is moving along nicely. We got a whole side done, the walls, the cafeteria, and about 3 rooms today. So I'm thinking that if I can stay steady on it for a couple more weeks, we'll actually, that goal will be done, so. Scheduled maintenance, nothing really in the books except for trying to find somebody to do the chain link. Got a hold of Precision Landscaping. They came out and looked at it a little bit. They're gonna give us a bid. I had a few other calls out, but I haven't heard back from them. Had to leave messages. A lot of people, I think, on like vacation. So I did get one guy who called me back, said he would be on vacation, but he'd be in here on around the 25th to look at it. So get that all figured out. Unscheduled maintenance, the only thing really that we had, not even an emergency, we had to dig up the leaking water hydrant at the ball field. Chris actually noticed whenever he was down there watering some grass that there was some water coming up around the spigot, so we dug down about 4 foot, replaced it. That was basically the biggest thing that came up. HVAC, haven't had, knock on wood, too many new issues. Preventative maintenance is helping that out a lot. And still working on that process, getting everything lined out, but I do believe actually keeping the filters changed, coils clean and such has actually helped us out a little bit. So I don't want to speak too soon. If it starts working hard again, we may have issues, but right now, I think it's helping out a lot. All the equipment in the shop, and I'm gonna knock on this thing again. It's functioning. Even the skid steer is still functioning. No problems there. Received one bid back on our equipment cover. We're waiting 2 more bids that will be coming in shortly to see about, and I think they're waiting on cost of supplies. And right now they're waiting. Matt will have that back to me. I'm hoping by the end of this week. Facility grounds, grass cut, and that's really clean best we can. The rain has made some weeds pop up. I'm not real quick, but we'll get that taken care of. Future projects, still working on the goals. My main goal is I really want to get this building painted. It hasn't really been painted, just seemed like it's been touched up for a while. I want everything to look solid and nice and clean when the students come up. So been really focusing on that. The lead water testing, I did do a little more research on that. That is a one-time test. You don't have to do it again unless they put it through and send something out within the Senate bill that you have to do it again within so many years. But if we complete that, it will be a one-time thing. I have started a count on all the spigots and the water outlets in the whole facility. I should have some numbers put together before you by next board meeting. That way you can see maybe about how much it costs the company. But I have to actually count everything. So as we're remodeling and painting and fixing drywall and counting spigots as well. So then I can get a cost on how much each test is going to cost and how much each, when you send the sample off to get tested. So and then I can put some numbers together to get that. Just trying to get the place looking good and ready for the school year. So you guys have any questions for me?
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, summer school report.
I hope I gave everybody not too much, but enough information. I wasn't quite sure what y'all needed. We basically started with about 360 students and ended with about 343. There were 3 of them that I had to actually kick out of summer school due to behavior, but the rest of them I think were mostly kids started and didn't want to finish, vacations came into play, that kind of thing. We have the program to where the kids do get incentive cards, $100, $75 and $50. They can't miss more than 14 hours. So I did see several of them that finally did miss that, dropped out when they missed those days. We had some flu and stuff like that at the very beginning. I put in the percentages for the first 5, the total of the 5 weeks, and then the overall in there. And we had about 231 out of the 343 ended up getting those gift cards anywhere from 100 to 50. So I think that was pretty good. The budget, I wish I would have went ahead and hired one more. It looks like I had enough in there for one more teacher. I think the junior high could have used another teacher, but again, kind of learning and getting in there, but I still came under budget, which I was really excited about that, dealing with the budget. Discipline, it was pretty rough the first 2 weeks, and maybe just new, administrator getting in there. They were testing me out after the first 2 weeks. They kind of were like, okay, Miss V's fair, but she's not going to put up with anything. So it got a lot better after that. And I would say maybe anywhere from 1 to 3 a day. So it kind of slowed down after that. Everybody getting in and kind of getting into the groove. Highlights, kindergarten learned. I loved going through, went through one day, they were learning their ABCs. They were all up and moving and dancing in the classroom. I mean, it was really cute, and they were all singing along. A lot of learning I saw going on. Second grade, they did a lot of math and doing Venn diagrams, that kind of thing. Third grade, I didn't put that in there, but wish I could remember what you call it, but the like little water things that they move, you kind of put in and it sits on the thing, and they made those. That was really neat. I thought that was cool. Fourth grade, owl pellets, and let me tell you, that was really interesting trying to get owl pellets. If you guys do not know, that is something that is super expensive to purchase. I called the conservation department and asked them, and they actually donated it for us. So that was really awesome, because those were really expensive to get out pellets. But that was really neat. They had a big thing. I know Warren put a lot of pictures out on Facebook on that, and I think the kids had a lot of fun with that, kind of dissecting and going through those and finding all the bones. It was really cool. The fifth grade, they were making flashlights as a science project. I thought that was really cool. It was really neat going in and seeing that. Junior high, they did a lot of projects, math, reading, science. They had a good time. I brought in a speaker from the Missouri Department of Conservation, which was really neat. The library had sent over a thing about, and I wish I could remember what it was, that they were doing over there, and wanted to know if we wanted to come over. Well, we had an overwhelming yes. And so when I told them, they're like, oh, we were thinking like maybe 10, 15 kids. And I was like, oh, that's not going to work. So they offered to come in and they did a mammals, and it was amazing. They did it just K through 5. First grade didn't do it because they do a mammals presentation on their own. So they wanted to opt out just so that nothing was spoiled when they did it throughout the school year. But the lady was very, very impressed. She said about all the schools that she had visited this summer that we had the best behaved kids. And so I was really proud of that. They came up, they did it in here, and she said it was really great. And then Debbie Wagner, I think as somebody she knows, she's also a teacher that is a writer and wrote children's books. So the last day we brought her in, and so the lower grade, she read her books to them. And then the upper grade, she talked about the writing process and getting into that and how all that worked. And they really seemed to enjoy that. Changes I would like to kind of see for next year. I think making a deadline would be very beneficial for this. One thing I would really like for the teachers to be able to do is to actually contact the parents and say, hey, I'm going to be your teacher for the summer with your kids. This is the kind of things we're going to need for the classroom. If there's anything they need, especially like kindergarten, that kind of stuff. And just a few things like that. So I think that's really important. That's one thing we didn't get to do this year. I don't know if we've done that in the past, but I really would like to be able to get that out and have the teachers be able to contact their parents and say, and introduce themselves. But overall, I think it went really well. It was a great learning experience for me. I'm kind of looking into, I've had my administration for a while now, but hadn't really done anything with it. So I'm kind of looking at maybe moving in that direction. So I don't know if I want to stick with little kids or go back to my big kids, but I really enjoyed it. I used to have a home daycare, so it was really nice kind of getting back into the little kids. So I really did enjoy it, and I had a lot of fun, and I appreciate the opportunity. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
So with people signing up, with parents signing up, did you see a pattern in it? Did we have 50% kind of sign up a month out and then kind of, a little bit each week, or was it right towards the end? Or
Well, that I wish I could answer. I don't know, because I think a lot of them got turned into the office, or they got turned into the elementary. So they never always made it over there. I would say once I started getting into it, there was a lot I was doing it the last 2 weeks, right before, like at the end of the school year, putting information in. Well, we had kids show up on the first day that never even applied and never even, put their paperwork in. So we were like, okay, let's get this going. So that's hard to say, but I think if we give them the deadline, I think anybody that sees a deadline, they would get into it. But I know St. George gave their kids a deadline. And I want to say that was maybe 2 weeks before the end of the school year. So we got a lot of theirs. They had a few stragglers, but I don't think it was that many. But I wish I could say, but it's hard for me to say because I didn't actually know them. They were collected here. Some of them turned them into the high school buildings. So that's another thing I'd kind of like to see implemented next year is just one place, and maybe that would help. I know with St. George, you know, they'll have to collect them there, which there's no problem with that. But I think if we give somewhere on the paperwork saying, please turn them into the elementary, since the majority of our kids are the elementary, I think that would be a good spot. But, and then that's just something that the person, whether it's me or whoever, can just pick them up from there and get a better idea of it. That I don't know since I didn't collect them.
Have we thought, I mean, we're just talking about that paper that they fill out to say they're going to attend, right?
Right.
What about doing something online? I'm just thinking
Well,
for ease of getting it in, people are.
There is an online one, but unfortunately, since it's ran through Journey, like I don't even have access to that. Ed, I can't think of his last name, but he was the guy that I contacted. I would have to call him and say, hey, can you send me? And usually every Thursday or Friday, he sent me the online one. So there are, that is an opportunity for them to fill it out online. But again, I don't have access to that and I have to wait for them to send that to me. So that ability is there, and they'll fill them out online and they'll fill out the paper ones. We got a lot of those. So we have a lot of duplicates. So when we first started out, we thought we had a lot of students. And then when we started going through the paperwork and seeing, oh no, this is a duplicate, when we actually inputted them into the system. But we do have the online option as well. It's just not through us, it's through the Journeys program.
So we do have an online option. So if we send our information out, it could include the link,
Yes.
but we just need them as kind of.
The link, yeah, I'm not sure exactly where they get that link from. I think it's on the flyer that goes out originally, that they can either fill out the paperwork or they can apply online. So they know about the online version. We have quite a few that actually filled them out online as well. It's just, again, not something that we control. It's through the Journeys program, and Ed, the guy that's over us, he's the one that sends those to us.
If Ms. Grillner has a process over there that's working pretty good, we may try and mirror that our
Yeah.
first year. Just to stay consistent. That way we're not confusing parents.
Right.
We can look into both having the online in-house for us and then maybe running St. George's off fence. If it's working for them, it'll probably work for us
Yeah.
as far as registration.
And I think I would say we got some of the St. George parents, because especially if they were incoming kindergarten kids, we didn't have them in our system, or they've never been in our system, which doesn't necessarily mean that, but just Alice, she knows everybody. So she would tell us, she's like, oh, this is a St. George kid that's coming in. So she told us that. So I know they even use that online process as well. Any other questions? All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, discussion item, second reading of policy 410.
0410 is the policy that outlines which day of the month and which day of the week we have our board meetings. It previously read that we would have our board meetings on the third Tuesday. So we had our first reading last month. The only verbiage that changes is the date or the day of the week, Tuesday to Thursday. So this would be our second reading, moving our board meeting from the third Tuesday of the month to the third Thursday of the month. Have any questions about that? We'll have our action. It'll be an action item in August, making our September board meeting the very first board meeting. Should you vote to move it to Thursdays, that would be on the third Thursday of the month.
All right, review of handbooks, high school.
So I went through our handbook with our leadership team before we actually left school. We looked at every single policy because it hasn't been reviewed in quite a while. So we kind of went through it with a fine tooth comb. And I also sent it out to middle school and to high school parents to actually look at, just asking questions, does something not make sense? I want to make sure that when parents get these in their hands, they know exactly what's going on. So we did make some changes in the handbook. We did decide to make 2 handbooks. The middle school and the high school were all in one. But one of the parents said, well, a lot of this stuff doesn't apply to middle school. So as a middle school parent, I'm overwhelmed with all this high school stuff. I'm like, well, that makes total sense. So we divided it up. So when we send it out to parents, it's actually going to be sent out to middle school. We'll have theirs, high school will have the other one. A lot of it is exactly the same. We just took a lot of the high school stuff out of the middle school. So I sent, and there were quite a few just updates and changes in there. So I sent out all the different changes. So with some of the highlights in there, we are gonna go to a more stricter cell phone policy. So at the middle school, we're gonna go to cell phones will not be allowed during the school day at all. From 7:15 until 3:45, we want them in backpacks. They can still bring them. But in backpacks, we don't want to see them out during the actual school day. And at the high school, we're going to strictly enforce that they're not out during class time. We want them in their backpacks, put away, so that students can be focused on their learning. Otherwise, the cell phone is very distracting. So that was one of the bigger changes. We're also going to ask that backpacks be left in lockers. They can bring them to school, but just for safety and ease to move around, we're going to be working on a lot more cooperative learning, which means students are going to be up and moving in the classroom. It's a lot easier to leave those backpacks in their lockers, lunch boxes in there, so that they're not clumsy around the room. So those are the couple of the bigger ones. We're going to put some policies in place for dances and field trips that you need to be well behaved to be able to come to dances. You need to be at least, getting a D or higher to go to dances, different things like that, so that kids have that expectation of you need to be doing well in school to enjoy some of the extra fun stuff you get to do. So I'm trying to think what else was exciting that we added in there. Were there any questions that you guys had? I know there was a lot, so yes.
I figured out that I was commenting on the board's copy of the handbook and not on the one that you can see.
Oh,
So I have a
okay.
question, kind of a reoccurring theme as I was looking through the dances and field trips, was any student that attains an F. That was always kind of the second or third. So my question was, where does that mean that on a quarterly report card, on a progress, or does that mean if the dance is next Friday night, then you can't have an F in the grade book as your average grade, or?
We're gonna run them quarterly, and I probably didn't specify that in there. I'll go back and make sure that that's added. We're gonna run them quarterly. So say after first quarter, you're failing science, that next quarter, if there's a dance or a field trip or something like that, then you won't get to a 10 until that F is brought up to an actual D.
So it's almost like a moratorium for 1 quarter.
Yep, for
if
each
you get a
quarter.
recorded F
Yes.
on your.
So it's not gonna be, and that's where we had some confusion this last school year as well, with some parents calling in because they're like, well, when are we checking grades? When are we? I'm like, well, we need to specify this so that you know exactly, because the students need to know. Because we don't want to just say, oh, you have an F, we didn't give you any time to fix this, you can't go on a field trip. So yes, it's gonna be quarterly, and we'll make sure that they're aware that the next quarter, you have this F, you need to bring it up.
Gotcha. So even if they don't choose to go to a dance at some point, the parent will know, hey, for this next quarter, this isn't an option for your son or daughter.
Yes, and we do require that our teachers, if students are getting a D or an F in their class, we require them to reach out, or they should be reaching out to the parents. So the parents should be aware that their student has a D or an F. So any other questions? I was trying to figure out if there's anything else exciting. Just some other just random, oh, we did add a retake policy in there. Because we do feel like that if a student, legitimately has trouble with a concept, they should have an opportunity to retake a test. The teachers did feel like there should be some set stipulations, like you can't not do any homework for the whole unit and then fail a test and then be able to retake a test. So certain things like you need to have turned in all your assignments, because some concepts are just hard for kids. You might just not get it the first time, but with some reteaching, giving them that chance to retake. So that was another thing that we added in there also. So any other questions from board looking through it?
Thank you for your effort.
I have a question.
Yes,
With everyone has to allow retake? Is that what
yes,
that means?
everybody is gonna be mandatory to allow retakes in their classroom.
Well, this might get to your question. Do they have to score below a certain?
Yes, yep, let me grab my retake policy here. So it says they have to have a 69% or below to be able to retake the test. They have to have turned in all their homework, so there's definite stipulations so that they have that opportunity to retake it.
Teachers don't have autonomy to do that type of thing on their own?
No, they could before, but we'd rather have that option. Now, granted, whenever we discussed it in leadership team, there was a definite big discussion about it with my teachers. And I know Charlotte was in there as well. She's one of my leadership people. But they said, you know, looking at our students that actually fail their tests, how many are probably going to take advantage of it? That's my question. So we think that every teacher having that option is a good thing. So the students, if they legitimately didn't understand something, they have that chance to retake it and try again. But they are only allowed one retake. They have to have all their homework done and it has to be a 69% or below.
So just thinking long-term wise, like senior year, kids get nominated for, I don't know how they get nominated. I'm still learning all of that, but they get nominated, let's say for king or queen, but they failed class. Now they can't go.
They won't be able to be nominated for king or queen. And we'll catch that the quarter before. So say the dance is in, I'm trying to think, like say prom is in April. We'll catch it in that quarter before. And then whenever they're nominated for king or queen, we'll just go to that student privately and say, hey, you're not qualified, or, you know, don't have the qualifications to be nominated for king or queen at
And you
this
don't
time.
think parents are gonna be upset that their kids are missing senior experiences?
The way that we're looking at it here is students should want to have good grades, and we should be there helping support them to get there. And the parents should be doing that as well. So hopefully my goal is that teachers are letting them know along the board, like say if your student is failing the class, the teacher should be contacting you. If they're not, let me know. But they should be contacting you, letting you know. And then we're hoping that the parents will be supporting their student at home. And then we're also going to put things in place at school to support them as well. So we're hoping that putting some of these things in place will encourage students to work harder on their grades, to work harder on their schoolwork, so that we don't see these F's as often as we usually do.
Ask clarifying question, because I think this goes to what you were asking. It has to be the quarter before. So if you're gonna be homecoming king or queen, it's not and presumably you're probably your senior, or at least you're an upperclassman, but it's not an F your freshman year that can.
No,
include
it is only the quarter before what we're looking at. And it's kind of like our athletic handbook policy with our sports. It's just looking at that quarter before, and that's what we're going off of. So it's not going to be a shocker.
Even then, I mean, I look at it as a quarter before my child failed summer, and like he's playing football, if he failed, he's sitting out for a whole quarter, losing out on experiences. And I mean, I feel like I'm as best I can be supportive of my child, but he is his own. But I just wonder how many parents aren't there for those kids. How many kids are we going to be? I don't know, your senior year, I'm just going, there's so many life experiences you get to have in your life. And unfortunately, some of them don't have the support that most children we would hope would have. So
And the other thing we are instilling this year is our Wildcat time, which we're moving to the end of our school day. And it's going to be a more structured time where students are going to be assigned to one teacher, and they're going to have that autonomy from freshman, sophomore, junior, senior to get to know that one teacher. That teacher's job is to talk to that student whenever they do, like even the first couple of weeks of school. If the student's not getting their assignments done, that teacher's job is to kind of help keep track of that student, kind of like a homeroom teacher. So hopefully that teacher's also letting them know, hey, you're wanting to be, you know, on homecoming court, you're wanting to do these things. Let's do what we can do to help you. So it's not going to be a good luck, do it on your own. It's going to be, we're going to be keeping track of these kids every week and hopefully giving them that support in that 30 minutes a day to help them reach those goals so that they're not failing. That's our biggest goal.
Just based on, I'd make a comment too, because I went through this with my son, who'd be a senior, because he was asking questions. And so based on our 70-30 split, with a lot of our homework being participation, you can get 30% of your grade just by doing your homework, which gets you 51% of the way to passing, with a 59 or better being passing. So you will only need a 50 on your tests on average to gain those other 29 points if you just do your homework. It's actually, when you look at it that way, you can get a 50 on every test and do all your homework, and you'll minimally pass a class. It should be really tough for a student to get an A, but it should not be very difficult for a student to pass under those circumstances, if that makes sense. You're gonna have to just not do your homework, and you're gonna have to really bomb consistently some tests over time.
And also, we're giving them that retake policy. So, and hopefully the parents will know that too. So hopefully if they are bombing a test, they're gonna take advantage of that retake policy and go try to get their grade up. So that's our goal. Our goal is so that students don't fail.
And you said the teachers are reaching out too once they get
Yeah.
to a certain threshold, right? So it's not like the parents that just don't check the portal and they don't know.
They should be made aware somehow.
Are we pretty good at updating portal? That's another, honestly, while Jackson isn't super high horsepower academically, he's really responsible, so I don't really, he tells me when there's something I should look at on the portal, but it's always important, whether I look on it or not, that what's on there is accurate.
Yes.
What's our grade, like our grade book update policy?
So it's,
Is
our
this-
policy is weekly. Now, of course, some teachers do it weekly, some do not. And my goal this year, I was not on top of that as much as I should have been last year, being first year, trying to tread water and figure it all out. My goal this year is to make sure that teachers are staying on top of it. I don't want us to get to the end of the quarter and all of a sudden your kid's grade goes from an A to an F because the teacher puts all their grades in at once. That's not what we want. I want teachers to be able to go in weekly and see how their student's doing. So if your student did bomb a couple tests, you're like, whoa, 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 what's going on, buddy? How can we help you? So that's my goal as an administrator. I want to make sure I'm staying on top of them.
Teach your parents this too. This was super helpful, especially if you don't have consistent internet access at home. They can screenshot, which will be time and date stamped, their portal grades, and just take their Chromebook home and they can show their parents the image. They don't even have to have internet access in order to see those grades. They can screenshot it here, time and dated at home.
Show it to their parents.
Give your
That's a
parents
good point.
that trick, because it helps. I've run into that.
And that's what we're gonna make the kids be aware during that 30-minute Wildcat time. We want them to be looking at their own grades. So we're gonna say, hey, we're gonna take 5 minutes, everybody pull your grades up. Look at your grades. What do you think? So that the kids are aware too, because sometimes they're like, well, I didn't know I had an F. Well, we want to make sure you do, and you have time to fix it is the biggest thing.
And you're looking at things like, I know some of the teachers put in a 0 when they're doing like contests and such and they're out. But if that falls in a weird time, like you would look at that. and not-
Yes, and they should be putting in, if that's the case, and it was like the end
So
of
that they
quarter.
know that they have to do it, but it's
Yes.
not, they didn't get it done because they were gone for a contest that week.
Exactly, and that should not affect their grade. And if it is, and if you see anything like that, let us know because
I
sometimes
just
we
didn't want
overlook
it to
stuff.
affect somebody like if they're
Yes.
quarter end and they show that they have zeros, but they just haven't made that work up yet.
And there should be, and I'll double check in the new Infinite Campus, I'm not sure how they put it in, but there should be an exempt grade where they can put in an exempt until the student actually does that assignment. So kind of like as a placeholder for that,
But
so
if
that
you're
they're
on
not
the
getting a
border-
zero.
Yeah, if you're on the border, you just don't want to kick somebody over the edge.
Exactly.
Have it not really be a failing grade, actually.
Yes, because those do happen, especially with FFA on their
Yes.
trips and different stuff like
Because they
that.
had a bunch.
Oh,
that
yes.
I was like, oh,
Yes, oh, I get that.
A couple of things that we're pushing through our leadership team are a couple of philosophies. Let's be crazy, but not nuts. And that just means, hey, let's have high expectations for every kid. But when we set those standards and those expectations, realize that we're dealing with people and people struggle. And so let's make sure when we take a look, we're not doing something so crazy that we've just turned absolutely nuts. And we ignore the fact that that student has 3 zeros because they've been out at contests for this week and they'd be passing without it. That's very important. Let's be crazy, but let's not be nuts. And the second that I hope is pervasive in any handbook changes that we were made with, and that is a value for the struggling student. And I always have to explain what that means because quite often people think a struggling student is a student that is at or near failing. And I disagree with that. My son is a struggling student. I watch him struggle, meaning I watch him come home and I watch him study. He does flashcards. He does every assignment to the point of frustration, even if he knows I'm about to give it to Miss Peterson. And Dad, I know this is not good. Will you please look at it? And the times where I can't look at it, he goes to Miss Peterson. So struggling student to me is completely separate from what the result is. I love a struggling student that gets a 99 and I love one that gets a 49. As long as they're struggling, I love them to death. And that's what our rules and guidelines should be framed around. Same thing I asked my student. Did you speak with Miss Peterson? Yes. Okay, well, what feedback did she give you? She told me that I needed to do more of this. What's your plan to do that? I'm gonna go see her after school on Tuesday this week and Wednesday next week. And I asked her, she's gonna give me the review one day ahead so that I can have an extra day of review on it. And I'm gonna ask you to help me study for an hour the night before the test. That is a struggling student. If he comes home with a 49, I love him to death. He's done everything he can. I'm gonna ask him the same questions again. If he comes home with a 99, I'm gonna high five him. But what I hope all of our handbooks show is a high degree of value and respect for the struggling student. Whether they get straight A's and knock the top out of it. A lot of people think that 4.1 GPA kid, well, he was just, or she was just born with it. No, I see them, they go on Friday night instead of playing, Black Ops or whatever, they sit in a circle and they talk about chapters 3, 4, and 5 in The Great Gatsby because they know they have a quiz on Tuesday. That's a struggling student to me. Now they get an A. But what I hope that you see over time is a transition to really showing a high degree of respect and value for that struggling student. High standards. Now let's make sure and give them every single support and opportunity to get there. And then let's really value them when they get there. Let's be crazy, but not nuts when they do everything we ask them to do and they don't make it. Sorry, I'll get off my. So
Well, I want to perspective,
Go ahead.
from the perspective of teaching dual credit. Okay, I know there's teachers that say that there's no makeup. What I have had done in the past is, okay, you don't retake the test, but you have enough points over the quarter or over the semester that you can make it up. So if somebody comes in and says, absolutely, my syllabus says no retakes, then how do we resolve that?
So dual credit is actually from East Central or from Lynn Tech, so that's gonna be different. You will have your own syllabus and that's different than what we have ours. So
Okay.
whatever policies you want in your classroom for that dual credit class, that's an actual college course. So that's totally fine.
Okay, but the parents need to know that.
Yep, and we can do that through the syllabus. Each teacher is gonna have a syllabus this year.
Right.
And it's gonna go home to the parents, so they'll be aware what's going on.
Okay.
Absolutely. Good question though. Absolutely.
With regards to retakes, I applaud you on making the attempt to push academic achievement. We obviously need that. You're gonna get hit with, you'll be all the way at the end of the quarter and someone can't do something and right at that moment, the kid's getting the B, but he had the F at the end of the semester or something. That complaint will be coming. And they're gonna go, well, look, for crying out loud, for 5 weeks, look what he's doing. That, we will need to be, and granted, the rules are gonna be the rules, but we're certainly gonna get those. But I'm not necessarily saying you shouldn't, whatever, I'm not weighing in opinion wise, but there's no question you're gonna get that done. And I sincerely hope that you require that our teachers update their portal every week. A teacher who does not do that is lazy, in my opinion. Having done that for a long time. Our teachers should not be waiting 3 weeks and put one thing in the grade book.
Yes, yeah.
Then it's a big old surprise what happens at some point. That is lazy teaching right there, and sincerely hope we don't have a lot of that.
And last year I was not as on top of it as I should have been. And this year my goal is every week I want to check.
I'm making no
make sure they
judgment
are-
at all. I'm just based on the statement you made,
Yes.
based
Yep.
on my experiences, you got to get up, we owe it to the kids. We demand they do the work. So we ought to too.
And I
Right,
don't want
there you go.
any kid to be totally surprised at the end of the quarter what they're gonna get. They should kind of have an idea by the end of that quarter, because what's put in the grade book, they should know what's coming.
Right.
It should
No,
never
I
be a
agree
surprise
100%
to
with
them.
that. I'm totally
Yep.
support that.
No, I
so-
totally agree.
I am not aware, by the way, if our current student information system has this, but I know Infinite Campus that we're moving to does, where we can pull a date report that will actually give us whether or not a teacher is updating their grade book.
And I'm excited about
By
that.
name and by date when they have updated.
Because in SIS, we did not have that capability. So in SIS, a teacher could, when they put in a grade, even if it was today, they could have backdated it. And it shows like it was put in that date, even though it was put in today. So if I went in, it looks like they put it in a few weeks. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that piece of our new system. Any other questions about the handbooks? Great. If you have anything, let me know. I don't.
Thank you. All right, review of the elementary handbook.
Good evening. I wanted to just present this to you one more time. But first I want to start by saying thank you to Eric Moorfield, who has put in a lot of hours helping me work through this change. So the only major change I had from last month's board meeting was our grading system. Most of our grade levels in elementary were already using standards-based. This coming year, we will be going all standards-based for the elementary, and those will also be housed on our Infinite Campus online. So that was the only major change I made this month. Are there any questions on that?
I want to clarify one, based on a question that I got earlier. We have not up until this point kept up with our parent portal for elementary. Meaning the only reports that our parents were receiving were the standards-based grading. One element of us moving to Infinite Campus and instituting across the board K through 12 parent portal grading is parents will get formative grades in just your traditional system. So yes, your grade, your report card will say 4, 3, 2, or 1 based on the standards. But when you look at your students portal, you'll see multiplication tables, 0s to 5. Worksheet 1 through 12, 78%. You're going to be able to see some grades in there as a parent. I didn't realize we weren't doing that last year. Actually, Cammie pointed out that we weren't doing that coming in, but we will see a traditional 0 to 100% grading system in the parent portal. It's just the actual report card that'll be standards based. Is that accurate?
That on the teacher side, from coming from Jeff City, I guess I've never looked at it from the parent side, but the report card that we printed out was 4321. And so that would be the report that they would be given. So as a teacher, that's all we inputted in Jeff City.
So only 4, 3, 2.
Only 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's the moving from the mindset of the level of mastery for standards and making sure we're hitting all of those standards. That I'm aware there is not then.
Is there a framework for, now I'm curious, because you all know I came from secondary, so I'm not familiar with this. So if a parent sees a 4, is that indicative of greater than 80% mastery? Is there an objective measure that a parent can know about? And for that same multiplication assignment, what will be in the grade? Will it be a 4, 3, 2, or 1?
So it's your standards, it's standards-based grading. So you take your priority standards that we get from DESE, and each of those standards will be listed in the grade card. So you'll have a section for each subject, and then it will say 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we have a scale that I presented in the handbook, and that just says it exceeds the grade level expectation at a 4. It is not matched with a percentage for standards-based grading. 3 would basically be your 100%. You're meeting what we asked you to meet. So there, while it's not correlated directly to that, you could correlate it in the sense that if you're getting a 4, you're above the 100% or what we expect at that grade level. Younger grades, that's a little bit harder to do, like kindergarten, because you can only go so far with that content. Once you get to the higher grade levels, it is definitely possible to go beyond what we expect. The 3 again would be that 100%, but there is no correlation chart for this.
I would, just thinking practically, if I've got a 3rd grader who did that multiplication worksheet, I as a parent see it, I come home, I help my son, I only had boys, I help my son with it, and he seems like he has it pretty good, and then it goes back to school. How do I know how well he did? If maybe I was a math major, so that kind of helps. So maybe it's a horrible example, but what if I wasn't exactly sure? Let's put it in the English, the grammar side. That's probably one of my weakest. And so I think I helped him really well, but I'm not sure. And so when I see that grade, when I see that manifest in the student information system, how do I know if I helped him well and what I helped him with? Because maybe it's conjunctions or something like that. I think I helped him pretty well with that, but I don't know if a 3 is he got them all right, or a 2 means he had 50% right. So I'm trying to think of how I partner with standards based, because I, as a teacher, very familiar with not 3rd grade standards, but my standards when I was a math teacher. But I don't know how to interpret probably what's on the left side, the standard on the screen from a parent's perspective. So how do I bridge what I see on the screen in a standard, which is Missouri Learning Standard, with that worksheet or project that I helped my son study for or worked with him with, or, how do you bridge that as a parent?
I think it's a lot of conversation between teachers and parents and making sure we're communicating what skills maybe they're struggling with or what they're doing well. Definitely answering any questions on the grade card. I would say that coming from the teacher perspective, I would not just weigh in one assignment. So it would be multiple things for that same standard, because some kids do really well on the test or don't do really well on the test, but they've proven to me that they can do it in other settings. And so I typically, as a teacher, would then average that, because it's not fair if they do really well on the homework or the classwork, but then they're not doing well on the test. They've already proven to me they could do it. So it's a lot of observations and a lot of different grades. And in the grade book, you're just gonna see the standard. You will not see, like you're saying, the individual assignments.
Gotcha.
Coming from
I'm
a
just not-
parent who has standard-based grading, what I look at it on the grade card with my 9-year-old, if I see a 3 on the grade card, I know he's doing well. He's doing great, I don't need to worry about it. If it's a 2 or below, that's when I start worrying as a parent. So coming from a parent side, that's how I look at it.
So I'm gonna look at it a little differently because St. George has been doing this for a while. We were always informed early on, like beginning of the school year, they would talk about it when we go to parent teacher conferences, they would discuss why they gave them that and explain it too. But 3 to us was definitely meeting expectations, 4 is going above. So if they're learning multiplication, but they're only learning how to times 1 or times 2, but they know how to do times 5, then they're within meeting their expectation. We were always told for a 2, they may be struggling, but it's a new and learning concept. And so it's not that it's not unexpected for them to be added to. It's just something that they got to still work on with that child to get them to the 3. And then the 1s is the one I was always told that's when you need to worry, because that means your kid is not getting the concept and they should be. So
Absolutely, and I would agree with that. Anytime that I would tell parents from the teacher standpoint, if they have a 2 at first or second quarter, you do not need to be worried. They're still working on that. The great thing about standards based, it's not a one and done. It's we're working on this whole year thing. So they have all year to improve that. And again, 1s is when we should be concerned, but I would encourage teachers, and I plan to encourage teachers anytime they have a 1 to reach out to families. And let them know the skills that they're struggling with and what we maybe need to work on a little bit more. And the 2s, if we're getting to 3rd or 4th quarter and they still have that 2, then maybe we need to think about what skills are we missing or what can we do to help support them get that 3 by the end of the year. So for me, as from the teacher standpoint, it was a lot of me communicating with parents, which we need to be doing anyways.
So if I see a 2, I reach out to teacher and just say, hey, looks like he's a 2 here. Anything I need to be concerned about? Or I can say, here's what I would ask, honestly, is can you give me an example of what that standard is? What have I seen come home recently that would be indicative of that standard? And I promise I was not a helicopter parent, but I did ask my students detailed questions. Do you know what the standard you got in the 2? Did you talk to Ms. Peterson about it? What did she tell you? And so I ask kind of investigatory questions to make sure that he's being accountable. And so I just assumed that there were still typical grades and only the report card.
To my knowledge, there are not. And, if a teacher's giving a 2, they need to be able to explain to a parent who's asking why they have a 2 instead of a 3, what made that a 2. So a lot of times, maybe it's addition 0 through 10. Well, if the student can do 0 through 5, they may have a 2 because they're still working on that goal, but they will most likely reach it by the end of the year.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
I was just gonna comment, having kids that were, I guess, in upper elementary and lower elementary, I've seen both types of grade cards. I guess where I struggle with this is with the, say, 4th and 5th graders, where they're getting to the point where they have a better grasp of what a grade card is and where they need to be. And so I think that this obviously works other places. It can work. I think that it may require a little bit of narrative explaining it to the parents at first, just like we walked here.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like us walking through this, I understand it better now, but I do, when my daughter shows me her grade cards and I see letter grades, I immediately know what that is. And so I think that there will be some of a learning curve for some of our parents to understand, okay, well, where's the caution flag? So
Absolutely. And I will be more than glad to support parents and teachers throughout this change. I think it's important as a building that we're on one scale. I think there could be some confusion, if you have a student in 3rd grade and a student in 4th grade, you're not getting the same type of report card. And I think that consistency is really key for a building. And absolutely, we can educate parents as well as staff as we go throughout this change. I think communication is going to be on our side for that.
Okay. Even before we get ready to send out a report card, just a simple message out to elementary parents like a day or two before. And your elementary grade card's getting ready to come home. This is what you'll see, these numbers 1 through 4. These are what they mean. Kind of simple message, explain that a couple days before the report cards come out.
Just as a transition or a thought for the future, but I think kind of going off what Park is saying with the grading scaling, I would hate to throw our 6th graders into middle school and be shocked with how grading really works. So I know like St. George, we start grades starting in 3rd grade up. So it becomes a concept to them. They know what a 75% is, they start to become familiar with it. So just thinking of the older kids, I would hate for them to go into middle school, 6th grade and not understand grading scales and when they're used to standard performance.
Thank you.
thanks.
All right, review of the athletic handbook.
Hello. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the athletic handbook. If I could offer an analogy, I think our previous athletic handbook was a bit of an incomplete skeleton. What I would say it is now is more of a complete skeleton. And then, my goals for the future is really to start adding kind of the muscles and the skin and all those kinds of things as I work through this with coaches. I think it definitely is a vast improvement from what we had. What I really tried to do, I grabbed athletic handbooks from schools around the area, along with some other schools and for some ADs that I know. Relatively athletic handbooks, no matter where you go, is essentially, they're very similar to each other. I just found some gaps. I also really try to analyze, some issues and some situations that we came into contact with this year, and then tried to fill in some of those gaps, if that makes sense. And so I highlighted all of the additions in your copies. One thing that I, just to start with, I felt like our athletic handbook was, I think the tone it set at the very beginning was not the tone that I wanted to set. I did not get rid of that letter to parents, but I renamed it to a section called competitive programming, because I felt like that was really kind of what it was. But I also wanted to make sure that our parents and our students both understood that we appreciate them. And so that was kind of the tone that I wanted to set from the beginning. I also included all of the different activities that we offer both at the high school and middle school level. Sportsmanship was something that I noticed this year that really needed to be addressed. So I took some time to create a sportsmanship code. And what were the things that we were really trying to get our students, fans, spectators to know that was our expectation. And so I put that in there. I also started a philosophy, because again, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What road are we trying to travel down together? And what are we holding our people to, right? And so I really wanted to include a philosophy. So if I refer back to my previous analogy, what I really want to do is work with our coaches going forward and in the years to come and evolve that philosophy to really fit in what is our belief. So I just want to put a structure in place for now. I felt like there were some gaps in our participation guidelines, and so I added some pieces there. There's also no definitive disciplinary action, and so I made sure that there were a couple of situations that arose this year, and so I really wanted to hammer that out and make sure that there was something in there, as well as including some of the mission bylaws, just to as reference to go back to. And then we had a lot of it I left. I actually didn't take anything out of our previous handbook. Maybe rewrote a couple of sections, which I highlighted in yellow for you as well. We are going away from our 3-week cycle when we are reporting grades. And so I adjusted it just to kind of match that. And then added some things about our lettering policies and athletic awards. Added a section about concussions, our conflict resolution, so that when kids, because we do have a lot of students that are multi-sport athletes, as well as, participate in a lot of our clubs and fine arts. And so just kind of had, a distinct list of when there's a conflict, where does that fall? Our supervision policy. And that's really it. Does anyone have any questions for me?
As a parent, you put a lot of effort into that. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Looks good. All right.
All right, thank you. All right, action items, the tuition rate for 2023-2024.
Awesome, that is me. Board policy 2240 reads that we will set tuition rates annually as a Board of Education, so this is the time to do that. Our current tuition rate is $8,300 per student. There are some caveats to that. There are 12 different reasons that you wouldn't have to pay tuition, including an element in there that kind of relieves you of some of that burden if you use or if you own property within the district but do not reside within the district. So our current rate is $8,300 per year. We have a lot of different options there, which I outlined in kind of the preliminary summary, which is we can keep it the same. That, in my opinion, is a very conservative rate that will probably, in all honesty, keep most people from being interested in coming into our district. It'll keep them from coming. But there's also a cost benefit analysis that you'd want to do. There is a point where if you give such a reduced rate to a tuition that you have a flood of people and it costs you way more to educate them than their tuition would cover. And so I outlined 5 different points. A very aggressive tuition rate would be something like $1,500 a year per student. When I say very aggressive, I mean that is us telling our local community, hey, if you want to come here, we're looking for a reason for you to come here. We'd love to have you. To aggressive at 2,000, moderate at 4,000. Even if we just looked at the state adequacy target of 6,375, that would be conservative, or we could maintain 8,300. I'd also, like I outlined in the summary sheet, we have fairly small class sizes here. We can grow a little bit before we have to add staff. And by grow a little bit, of course, that depends on how you grow. If you get 75 kids all in one grade, that's going to strain our system, but that's not likely to happen. We're liable to get, 1 or 2 kids in each grade level at the most would be my guess. And we can accommodate those students easily. We can review it annually if we decide to set it at a reduced rate as it's compared now. And we get a flood of students, we can change that rate next year. But I do think there are some kids and some families that are reaching out in our proximal communities that are interested in coming and being Wildcats. I would like to reduce that barrier to some degree if we can. That is up to you as a board to set that rate, but I would recommend somewhere around the moderate, which would be that at 4,000, and that's still pretty high tuition. That means they're paying taxes in whatever district they're at, but they're paying 4,000. So somewhere plus or minus there would be what I recommend. But I leave that up to you and our board's philosophy on growth and being an attractive district that people opt into versus move into.
I don't tend to disagree that the rate is high right now. It's so high that nobody basically will ever come here and pay tuition.
I think it's a big reason.
What does everybody else think about it?
How many,
I think it should be way lower than that. I would go under $4,000.
Maybe
I
2,000.
think we are in a position to offer things that would attract people to our community, and like this is gonna be the first place they might look and then move and stuff like that. I don't know. I would knock that in half at least. And I'd like to see it lower than that.
Anybody else?
how many? I feel like I knew of a few years ago, but do we have any tuition paying students currently? Like what
We do
number?
not. However, we do have some students that reside outside of the school district, but whose parents own property that meets one of the 12 requirements. I don't know. We plan on sending a letter out this fall in proximity to registration for those who don't have residents inside our district to get a copy of their county taxes to make sure that we're actually following our current policy. And we do have I think we have 2, maybe 3 that'll end up falling into that category. But right now, we don't have anyone that's paying tuition. And I think of one of our coaches' families who their children would go to a different district than ours. They have 3 great kids and we're very happy to have them. Under this, it would be $25,000 for them to send their 3 kids here if they didn't happen to work for the district. I'd like to see that be less cost prohibitive as well. And we could set something like it's 2,000 for or 4,000 for the first student and 1,500 for each additional student. There are variations of that. That's not unheard of, but I'm open to suggestions. I do think somewhere in that $2,000 to $4,000 range seems very reasonable to me, and we'll see what kind of interest we get based off that.
Lori, Naomi, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's too high right now. So I'm good with anything under 4,000, I think.
We feel like splitting the difference between the aggressive and moderate at 3,000, or do we want to shade to the aggressive side at 2,000? Keeping in mind that in 1 year, if we get 37 students that show up that strains our system, then we can still slide it a little bit higher. Thoughts on that?
Comfortable with that number?
3 or 2?
3.
I like the idea of discounts for large families too.
We do 3, and then 1 for each additional.
That seems reasonable.
Just
3 for
like
the
that.
first kid, 1 for each additional. All right, so do we agree? Anyone want to make a motion?
I will. I move that we set our tuition rate at $3,000 for the first student and 1,000 for subsequent students within the same family.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. All right, milk and lunch prices.
We're not recommending an increase to milk or lunch prices for next year. We feel like we're going to be in a very good position. Milk prices haven't increased. We increase, I know it's a miracle. We did move milk prices last year, I think a nickel to accommodate for some increases. We think we'll be able to offer a better lunch this year than in recent history, and we should be able to do that at our current cost to students, $2.20. No, yeah, no pressure, no pressure at all. So I would recommend that we keep our current lunch prices and our milk prices.
Motion,
I move to maintain the existing lunch and milk prices at $2.20 and 40 cents.
can I get a second?
Awesome. Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of keeping them the same, raise your right hand. Okay, motion passes. Approval for the date and time for the tax rate hearing.
Historically, we have had our tax rate hearing at 6:30, the next board meeting, which in this case would be August 15th at 6:30, with our regular board meeting to immediately follow.
Okay. So can we get a motion to make the tax rate hearing at the beginning of the next regular meeting, August 15th, 6:30?
I'll make a motion to set the next tax rate hearing for August 15th at 6:30.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Approval of the architect and long-range planning.
The contract between the district and Bond Architects is about 90 pages long. It would be difficult to summarize that on one, but the reason that it took about a month longer than it did is our lawyers and our owner rep, Navigate Building Solutions, went through quite a few negotiations with Bond Architect firm. Most of those negotiations had to do with our flexibility within the contract to either pursue some projects or not pursue some projects. So there's a lot of legalese about how the items were worded, meaning if we created a long-range plan, then we had an obligation to follow through on that plan. What we've done is we've inserted some flexibility on behalf of the district to pick and choose items that we would choose to pursue either in the presented form, meaning what Bond Architects presents with us, or we would have an opportunity to negotiate and adapt those plans while still retaining their architect and long-range planning services. So we feel like our legal counsel feels like we're in a position that we can do that now. And so I present to you the contract as it read that I forwarded to you. Again, it's 90 pages. A lot of it is legalese.
Anyone have questions or comments? Can I get a motion to approve the architect long-range plan?
I move to approve the architect long-range plan.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, motion carries. Our next regular meeting will be August 15th, 6:30 p.m. Can I get a motion to go into closed session?
We adjourn to closed session pursuant to RSMO 610.021, subsections 13 relative to personally identifiable employment information, 3 personnel actions, 6 personally identifiable student information, 1 legal actions involving the public body and or privileged communications among that body and its representatives, attorneys.
I'll second.
Fantastic. Mark,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Naomi,
Yes.
Sean.
Yep.
Brett,
Yes.
Jamie.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So thank you all for coming. We are now in closed session.